My upcoming book, which is called The Future of Competitive Advantage, a business plan to save your customers, your company, and democracy, really goes, I think, directly to this issue of trust. And just as sort of a backdrop, I start the book by positing the idea that the corridor to the future for business has two doors. And behind the first door lies a future that will entail societal collapse, an end of the free market as we know it, and the end of democracy as we know it. That's the first door. The second door offers a shot at renewed mass prosperity, a renewal of social cohesiveness, and ultimately a refresh of democratic values and free market principles. That is the choice, I think, that faces business today. And I would also argue that we now stand literally on the threshold of the first door. That is the door we are preparing right now to walk through. The book makes the case that what we have burned through over the last 45 years is any semblance of trust and fairness in our society. And I'll tell you a quick story. There's an author named David Gell who wrote a book called The Man Who Broke Capitalism. And it was a book about Jack Welch. And he talks about General Electric in the 1950s. The General Electric company, one of the great companies in the market at the time. The General Electric shareholder report in 1953 basically, in summary, said that they were extremely proud of the high wages that they paid their employees. They wore that as a badge of honor because we pay our employees, they can have great lives, they can experience economic mobility, and we're proud of that. They were proud also that they paid their suppliers very well, because in turn, if they paid their suppliers very well, their suppliers could go on and they could pay their employees well, and their employees could prosper. They talked about how they were beneficial to their communities of operation, how, communities where GE set up benefited from their presence. And at the very end of the report, just almost as an aside, they said, oh, and by the way, we pay a reasonable return to shareholders. And that was it, 1953. By 1981, Jack Welch was now heading up General Electric. In that same period of time, the entire ethos around business had been changed by Milton Friedman, a famous Nobel economist and one of the principal thought leaders in what was called the Chicago School of Economics. And Friedman basically said, no. All that stuff about employees and communities and, fairness, that's nonsense. If we really want, markets to grow, if we really want prosperity, then what we have to do is put the shareholder first. Only the shareholder. Shareholder primacy is the only directive that the company needs to worry about. Everything else is complete and utter bullshit. Focus on the shareholder. Jack Welch said, hold my beer, right? He said, okay, everything is going to be directed at the shareholder. And Welch, true to his word, made sure that come hell or high water, no matter who had to die or what needed to be thrown away, he would make the numbers every quarter. Even if it took a little, financial shell games here and there, he would make sure they made the numbers. Jack Welch fired, in his tenure, 250,000 employees. The population of St. Petersburg, Florida, was fired under Jack Welch's tenure. Welch, in the time that he was in the chair, they bought two companies every month at General Electric. They acquired 2 new companies every month. I think it was over 1,000 acquisitions in the 20 years that Jack Welch sat as CEO. Stock price continued to go up. Also, coincidentally, Jack Welch's salary was 80% based on stock. By the time Jack Welch left GE in 2001, and keeping in mind that throughout that period, 1981 to 2001, there were upwards of 200 books written about Jack Welch and his management style. And that management style began to metastasize across the entire business sector. I was working for companies where if Jack Welch said Six Sigma, that's the way that, we need to focus on Six Sigma, the next thing you knew, as an executive, you were sitting in a Six Sigma seminar. If he said forced ranking, rank and yank style management, that's the way to go. Well, damn it, we were ranking and yanking along with Jack. Everything Jack did, we were doing. The whole business world came to emulate Jack Welch. The whole business world for 45 years has spent focused completely on shareholder primacy, on efficiency at all costs. No matter who has to suffer, we're going to become more efficient. And it is about market concentration. It's about scale and capital and size and monopolies, right? So what has that led to? Where's that brought us to? It has brought us to the brink of societal collapse and of the end of our democracy, and not just in the United States. Democracy is not just under threat in the United States. Democracy is under threat globally. We're seeing this turn up in surveys where people are losing confidence in democracy. Why? Because they look to government to say, hey, I can't make a living anymore. I can't buy a home. I can't afford an education for my child. What are you going to do for me? And they see that government today is in lockstep with business, with major corporations. And that in the US market, politicians are terrified of losing donors who happen to be, in many cases, large corporations. Executives today, CEOs, are pumping stock. That's their business. It's not about innovation. It's not really about growth. It's about stock price. What do we focus on? Every time you pick up a newspaper, it's about share prices. It's about who acquired who and who is now even larger. It's about who fired half their staff only to see their stock increase in value. I'm old enough to remember that if you fired half the people that worked for you, it was actually a sign that your stock should go down in value. It meant you were in trouble. Today, it's a good thing. So we're in a very, very precarious place. And it's a place that I don't feel is sustainable. And I do think that there are executives out there that recognize this. They're very far and few between. And there may be more, but they're not very vocal. But I think that those who get it are going to ultimately set themselves up to be the ones that walk through the second door of society, where we can renew a sense of mass prosperity like we had in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, where markets are growing, consumers are moving ahead, people are improving their educations, and all of that goes to the benefit of society. The book actually presents a business plan for organizations that want to go through that second door and use those very things, fairness, trust, and collective intelligence, as the new frontiers of competitive advantage.